I see you have the new Fender Vintera II there.
Oh yeah, got this straight from Fender, brand new, and I'm actually pretty shocked. Fender kind of killed it on this one. Drastic improvement over the Vintera I series. Differences between this one and the last generation. Well, one big thing that I noticed is just they've improved a lot of the features. So not only did they bring back finally they brought back rosewood. So that's nice. They removed the screw-in arm, which I hated. So they introduced the pop-in collet here. So this is a pop-in trem arm. They just are using a higher quality unit overall. It's not as nice as the American Vintage Reissue tremolo. They upgraded that. They upgraded the trem lock button, which is now that brushed nickel, that the same one that they use on the American Vintage Reissue, but it also is still a bit stiffer. It's not as smooth as the American Vintage Reissue trim. So if I decide to keep this guitar, I'm still gonna change that out.
What other mods do you think you'll probably do?
Well, it's funny because there isn't much. Surprisingly, other Jazzmasters where I almost immediately change out the bridge, the vintage style one with the threaded saddles. Everybody hates this bridge because you constantly are getting rattles and unwanted noises and instability, and the strings end up popping out of place because there's no actual groove for the string. But with a good setup, this one is actually not bad. I can live with this. I'm not getting any rattles whatsoever. They are using potentially a higher quality bridge.
Still put a Mustang bridge on that?
I might put a Mastery or a Stay Trem or even the Johnny Marr bridge on this, but nothing is the original Jazzmaster bridge. It's got this more metallic, shimmering kind of tone to it that the other bridges, they feel a little bit more muted, whereas this bridge makes the Jazzmaster as bright as it was intended to be. A Mustang bridge or a Mastery definitely bring more sustain into the picture, whereas this one has shorter sustain and a more rhythmic kind of attack to it.
What about the internals?
Well, it's a mix of good and bad stuff. The good stuff is that they're still using the full-size CTS pots in the lead circuit, and they're using the CTS mini pots, all vintage correct wiring. So you've got your lead circuit and you've got your rhythm circuit, and it's all the vintage correct values. They've got the Switchcraft toggle input jack and the switch up here. So all of that is premium. It's the same stuff that they're using in the American Vintage Reissue. So same stuff that they're using in guitars that are twice as much as this guitar, which is really nice. And the pickups are actually pretty nice. They are 50s inspired, even though they are strangely still gray bobbin pickups. If they actually were period correct for the 50s, they would have black bobbins on them. But they sound definitely better. The last Vintera Jazzmaster pickups were okay. They were the Jazzmaster tone. They just didn't have so much character to them, whereas these ones, they're woody. These are Alnico 2s. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but they have that vintage woody quality. Is more akin to the Seymour Duncan Antiquity Jazzmaster pickups, which are $250 or something for a pair of those. So it's nice that stock, it's got nice pickups. But the bad points are that for some reason, maybe because Fender included this anodized gold guard, they thought that would solve all the noise issues with this guitar. And so they completely omitted the use of shielding inside. So this guitar has no shielding at all. All of the cavities in here are completely bare wood. They're not even using shielding paint anymore. So that's one strike against this guitar, is that they completely got rid of that. And if
Original 50s Jazzmasters have it.
all of the original Jazzmasters, even up to the American Vintage Reissue or even Japanese reissues and the Mexican Classic Player, the Player Jazzmasters, and even the previous Vintera, they all had at least shielding paint, if not shielding plates and shielding tubs. So all of that creates almost this Faraday cage effect that helps to keep that 60 cycle hum and other unwanted noise away. Whereas with this one, if we turn this up, this picks up a lot of noise. We can even just do it real quick and just turn it on. And if you are at a volume that is typical practice volume, you'll see it's ready. There you go. That's loud as hell.
Yeah, that's
right. But even on the center, right? We're even on the middle position, which is supposed to be completely noiseless.
Yeah.
And you're hearing some pretty bad. So that
Touch the pick guard.
it almost sounds like we've got like a grounding issue. And this is from the factory, right? So, and we had this problem with the Vintera I too, and I don't know what they're doing. What they're doing with these ones that the American ones and the Japanese ones don't have. So that's strange. Very noisy, as you can see. That's 60 cycle hum, but it's this noise that bothers me a little bit more. Anyway, yeah, so that's definitely a knock on this, and one reason why if I were to keep this guitar, I definitely would shield the body, because the middle position should be completely silent, right? They also changed the fret size. They're either going medium jumbo or with these narrow tall. So these are a bit taller than the vintage size frets that we're used to on even the previous Vintera model. People who are used to the 9.5 radius guitars have a lot of trouble bending on vintage frets. And so because they made them taller, it's got the height of a medium jumbo, but it's not as wide of a fret. And so that is kind of the best of both worlds. Not bad. I do prefer vintage frets better. Not so much that I would do a complete refret of this guitar, but yeah. Also, one thing that I could knock this guitar a little bit for, as far as first impressions go, when I took this out of the box, it did have sharp fret ends, unfortunately. Feel them.
That's not.
Dude, just try running your hand up and down the thing.
I don't see why.
You could feel it. That's definitely, those are, it's not the worst. It's not the worst, but you can definitely feel them. And for a guitar that goes for, before taxes, $1,250 new, that is something that's kind of out of the control of Fender, because the weather changes. And the reason that this happens to your guitars is because when there's a lack of humidity in the air, that makes the fretboard actually shrink. It makes the wood in the neck contract. And so, of course, metal is not going to contract because of the changed weather. And so then you feel those. So quick fix with a StewMac file. But yeah, that's pretty much covers all the stuff that's new. They're unfortunately still using the synthetic bone nut. I don't know why. Whatever, it's serviceable, right? But the fact that their Squire Classic Vibe has a real bone nut, and that guitar is less than $400, and this one is $1,250.
That sucks.
So yeah, it's nice. It's pretty light too. I weighed it and it's a little under 8 pounds, which is really nice. It's got the vintage tuners, and yeah, with some small upgrades, maybe if you want to upgrade the bridge, but none of these things are things that you have to. Totally playable instrument out of the box, which is nice. For $1,250, I don't know. For $1,250, would you buy this? If you only could pick one guitar, or would you probably get something else?
For me, it would depend on how it plays.
I think it plays really nice. I've seen ones where people upgraded the pickups and the trem and the bridge and all that stuff and still selling it for less than what they go for new. So if you're in the market for a guitar, I definitely would try to find one used if you can, because I do think that if you can get this guitar for less than $1,000, definitely worth it. But for my money, I'm seeing too many interesting Jazzmasters and much more exciting colors and stuff on the Fender Japan Jazzmasters, which you've seen me acquire a number of recently, right? So for me, if I only had $1,250 to spend, I probably would go with a Japanese Jazzmaster over this one. Maybe one of the factory special run.
Nice.
Sherwood green or Sonic blue. So if you were comparing them, it is, I'd say, a good apples to apples comparison, because with the exception of, say, maybe the neck profile Japanese ones have been advertising a more youth-shaped neck, which in truth is not at all a youth-shaped neck when compared to the 50s baseball bat neck tellies, which are the real U-shape. The Fender Japan necks are more full C, almost a mid-60s Jazzmaster profile. But I'm sorry, the fretwork here, while better than the previous Vintera line, the fretwork here doesn't even come close to. You pull a Fender Japan guitar out of the box, you're never gonna feel sharp fret ends out of the box of a Fender Japan guitar. And imagine that's traveling overseas. Imagine all the weather changes that are happening there. I think Fender Japan waits or puts the guitars under conditions that forces the wood to contract already, so that when they do the detailing and they do the dressing of the frets, they've already subjected those necks, I feel like, to those conditions that make it so that it's less likely to lead to sprouted fret ends. That's the biggest reason. I also do like the Fender Japan pickups better than these. They're less noisy, they're fully shielded. A lot of times they're lighter. Fender Japan does still use basswood, but even some of the Fender Japan alder bodied ones are just as light, if not lighter, than this.
Sasha, and you're comparing the out of the box.
Out of the box. It's a crapshoot with the tremolo. You can get some good ones with the Fender Japan, but I would say definitely this one is a little bit better. But for my money, as a total package, just what I've seen and played, especially from, historically, Fender Japan Jazzmasters have been amazing. Just you've owned a couple of them. That red one that you used to have with the blocks and binding, amazing guitar. But yeah, this one just, if this had that level of detail and had a bone nut and had Goto tuners, which this one doesn't.
But that being said, how would you rate this guitar on a scale of 1 to 10?
1 to 10. Ooh, that's hard. This guitar out of the box, I would give it a 7. Not bad. But yeah, overall, a really nice guitar. There's a reason why certain people are saying that this might be the best Jazzmaster Fender has produced in the past 10 plus years. I don't know if I would agree. But maybe the best Jazzmaster that they've produced at this price point in the past 10 years. Definitely, I could say that.
Cool. I would probably buy a PC Rich.
PC Rich forever.